Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And this one is a bit of a doozy. I was in a dance contest. I was in an impromptu dance contest. And the only dance contest I've ever been in my whole life. Because I never learned how to dance. I don't really know how to dance. But everything clicked this one night, and I was dancing, and then a dance contest happened. And this story sounds unbelievable and completely ridiculous, and I totally understand that. But this happened to me, and it's one of the most insane memories I have, because it just doesn't seem real. It didn't seem real when I was doing it, and it doesn't seem real when I'm talking about it now, but 100% it happened. Because if you remember with the mountain, when I checked with my Chinese friends, did the sun really come up in the middle of the land instead of on the horizon? And they remembered it how I did. I checked with my friends in the following weeks to make sure the details I was remembering about this night actually happened, because we were drinking and it was really late and it was so bizarre. So let's dive right into this story, which I love because I look really good in this story. So I was dating someone at the time, and we were trying to do different things together, and we weren't really clicking each time we went out, so all the teachers and their girlfriends were going to go to the club. And there's a district in Beijing where all the clubs are. There are a few different neighborhoods with nightclub scenes, but this is like the one in the center of Beijing that had the reputation at the time that if you were looking for loud music and cheap drinks and a dance floor, this is the place you would go. It's called Wudaoko. The cover charge was 10 or 20 kwai, so $2 or $3. The drinks were also $2 at most. And then you just stayed in there and danced or hung out in the low lighting and internal organ rattling bass jams. So I don't usually go to these dance clubs because they're just too loud for me. If they were a little quieter, and once there was a quieter one, they were still playing all the music and there were drinks, but it just wasn't so loud that my ears hurt. It was fine. Anyway, everybody else likes the loud clubs, so everybody decided that we were going to Wudaoko that night. So a little while after school got out, and after we had a few beers, we piled into a cab and headed on over there. And my girlfriend seemed really excited, and now she would think I was a fun human being, and I was drunk enough that I didn't really care where we went. There would be some food, and there would be drinks there, and I would survive the night, even if I was pressured to dance. A concern of mine. And that's what happened. I got to the club. It was like 3-for-1 mojitos, and I started downing those and having some fun. Now, the music was too loud, but it was also pretty fun music. So we all started dancing, and then the girl I had brought asked me to teach her the dance I was doing because I had come up with this routine that I was like, this'll look cool, and I moved my feet in some pattern. And I guess it looked cool because she was like, hey, that looks cool. Can you teach me how to do that? And I had to yeah, I can do that. I can actually teach you. So I taught her how to do this, I don't know, routine that I was doing with my feet. And then the other teachers noticed that we were doing this cool tandem dance now. And they're like, hey man, where did you learn that move? Can you teach us those moves? I'm paraphrasing here. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then we had a group of 8 people all doing my made-up dance that I guess everyone thought looked cool. And it was like dance class. It was, okay, foot in, turn, spin around the end. And everybody was really into it, though, and we did look cool. And people were taking videos of us and whatnot. Now, this dance was something I just made up and was some old nothing bullshit, but I felt it in my legs and body. I was like, this does look cool. This routine that I just came up with just now, it does look cool. You can just tell when you look like a complete goober or when you look like you know what you're doing, and it definitely looked like this was something that I had worked on and planned and whatever. And everyone dancing was having a good time and like having fun. And a couple people in the crowds started to like back away and like try and copy the moves we were doing. And it turned into this like big thing. And this is so crazy. It sounds like a musical, but this is how it happened. So our routine started infecting the crowd, but it just started to get outside of our immediate group that I was teaching. But it's still like a group of expat Americans doing a dance routine in the middle of a Chinese nightclub. It really was very musical. Okay, but then we're all dancing, and I was like, I gotta keep adding to this routine because they expect me to, like, more. But before I could, this Chinese guy walked out of the crowd around us who looked so much cooler than me. Like, I had a beer and duck stained t-shirt and ripped jeans. Not cool ripped jeans, old ripped jeans. Although I think I was still wearing my Chucks at the time. And those are always cool. So I guess with my red high tops, I looked like a souped up hobo. Anyway, this Chinese guy strides up and cocks his head in what can only be described as a dance confrontation. He had an aura about him, a dance aura, and all the teachers noticed it, so they kind of like moved away from me and stopped dancing, and I turned around to face this guy, and like I said, he just moves right up and then just cocks his head, real like stylish, turns it at me, arms crossed, head back, chin up, and I'm like, oh, he wants to dance contest me. I knew instantly what he was doing. I understood that it was a challenge. And I thought about how I had never danced before at all, and how this thing I was doing was made up, and how everything I knew about dancing was from movies, and I didn't even dance in front of the TV when the movies were going on. I had just viewed dances by people before. And this guy looked like he danced professionally. Like, he had the whole outfit. He had the cap on at, 5 o'clock, so it's not quite backwards. It's tilted on the side. He had sunglasses on, even though there were like 2 lumens for the entire room already. It was a dark room. He was wearing a necklace. He had like a thin jacket that fit him like a supermodel, like he just walked out of a magazine, and like loose breakdance pants on. He looked really cool. He looked like some kind of dance robot ninja. And he moved like that. He moved very deliberately. And I'm standing there, as I mentioned, like a souped up hobo. And I'm like, man, this guy can clearly dance so well. Just from the way he walks, I can tell he can dance. It would be so stupid to dance against him because he obviously knew what he was doing. And I did not. But I decided to do it anyway. So he let me go first. He put his hands out, took a couple steps back, and did that up nod in this broad gesture, like, you first. And I was like, okay. So I started with my dance that I had just taught to my friends. And I just did the exact same thing. And the crowd was like, yeah, that's cool. That looked cool. And I was like, okay, I guess it was kind of cool because they're clapping and cheering for my move. And I just did that a few times and then stepped back. But then he stepped forward and did something way cooler with more kicks and spins, and what he did looked real. And everybody was clapping and cheering again, but not so much louder than when I had went. It kind of seemed equal. Plus, Robot Ninja didn't look like super happy after he danced. He looked like, oh, I could have done that better. Like, he looked a little pissed at himself. So I tried to up my game and added like a new foot weave at the end of the first foot weave. So it doubled my routine time. I don't even know what it's called, my sequence. And I just pretended like, yeah, man, that's my next level. And I did this full 360 spin at the end of it and held my hands up like a gymnast, like a dance gymkata gymnast. And the club really liked the new routine that I just made up on the spot and my pose at the end, because he posed. And I was like, I guess you pose at the end of these. And the club loved it, and they exploded even louder. And all of my teacher friends and our girlfriends are all screaming from the sidelines with everybody else in the club. Oh, the club has moved back, by the way. We have the dance floor like 80% to ourselves, and everyone else is crowded into this ring in the last 20% of the dance floor. But we have a whole bunch of space, so we're both using all of that space, kind of like moving around and dancing and weaving. But I'm like, okay, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. I can't dance better than that. I have nothing more. I can't like spin twice around instead of once. I couldn't add more to the foot sequence. I didn't even know how I was retaining all of this in the first place, but I had like Dance Dance Revolution brain on, and I remembered all of the 16 steps for that dance contest. My brain was like, look, this is the most important thing that's ever happened in your life, so we're gonna just use 100% brain on this dance contest. But I couldn't come up with something cooler than what I had just done. I was like, well, let's get something cool, brain. And brain was like, no, man, we're at our limit. Remember how you never danced before in your whole life and we've never thought of dancing before? We don't have anything left after this. So then Ninja Robot suddenly like springs into this super cool movement that I can barely even comprehend. He's moving faster than the eye can see. He's a total badass. And I'm clapping and laughing and having a great time because this is amazing. Like, he's stepping up to my routine and just like, okay, this guy is way better than me. He starts breaking, throwing in a few breakdance moves. But then it hits me that I can do this. If I can pull off one thing, then I can actually win an impromptu Beijing dance contest. Now, if I could just preempt the next me, then him, the next round, and just try and end the whole contest right there with one move that was the craziest thing anybody had ever seen, like 5 steps above what we had done, then he wouldn't go for the third round. The crowd would be so much louder that I could just be like, oh yeah, it's over now. Because if we went again, I would do something similar to what I had done the last time, and then he would do something like a step above, and it would be clear, people would be like, all right, well, the souped up hobo was good for a while, but this guy actually knows how to dance and can just keep doing this forever. So, this was my trick. I knew that I was never going to be in another dance contest in my life, and that my legs would never work again the way they were working this night, this freakish night. When the dozen drinks I was under the influence of, and the music playing at that exact time, and the spirit of challenge that had overtaken my body like a phantom dance maniac. Okay, and I have to set this up that I was a gymnast in like middle school, and I had this one move that I liked to do whenever we had to do push-ups or whatever. I would jump up in the air and land on both of my hands, and then in slow motion lower my body down, like my chest down to the ground in like slow motion. And that was the only thing my brain was like, that's dancey. And so it came up with a plan, and this is what happened. I knew if we did another round, he was going to win. So this was my move to end the contest with me as the victor. I go through the routine again. I do the same second routine that I did that the crowd really liked. And then at the end of that, I just did it once and then jumped up into the air so that my body was like parallel to the dance floor ground, also known as the dance floor, and landed on my hands and slow motioned myself down for a couple seconds with my body up in the air and just slow motion down. And then right when my chest started to hit the ground, I rolled my body from the chest to my feet and rolled my chest up while the rest of my body was rolling down, and I was doing the worm, a move that I have never done before but executed flawlessly in this moment. Textbook, perfect yin and yang sine wave worm time. And because my body did it once that first time correctly, I could do it again. So I did a huge worm, like a tsunami worm, like 5 or 6 times. And everyone was shocked the first couple times it happened, and by like the 3rd or 4th time, people were screaming and taking pictures, and every single person in the club, the DJ, actually with the exception of Robot Ninja, who was like crossing his arms and just observing me like a badass, but everybody else is screaming with like shock and glee and cheering. And look at this crazy foreigner that just threw down with the sickest worm anyone had ever seen for a long time. I was still doing the worms. I just kept doing the worm. And then I stood up after my wriggling. Cool, I pushed myself up or leapt. I did some move so that I was on my feet again all of a sudden in front of Robot Ninja and just locked eyes with the bro. And Robot Ninja, you could just see in his face, he knew what just happened. And the whole crowd is still screaming and cheering still. And Robot Ninja, with his arms crossed and his chin tucked down, finally lifts his head up from his chest, kind of up nods at me, smiles, and then walks back into the crowd with everybody else. And I am standing in the middle of this dance club floor crowd as the dance champion, the impromptu dance champion. And everybody is screaming and clapping and cheering. And it's over, and I did it. I won. I can't believe everything just happened. It's so crazy. The teachers from my school are going fucking nuts. They losing their minds, scream, cheering, losing their minds. And my mind is just spinning at what just happened. And it sounds fucking crazy, but that is what happened that night. And you can see why I remember it. It's one of the craziest things I have ever been involved in. And completely unique and singular within my life. I do not see another dance contest popping up anytime in the next half century. And certainly not me winning one again. So right after Robot Ninja leaves, Louis Vuitton Ninja shows up and he pushes his way sexily out of the crowd and struts up dancing in front of me. And then he starts to do a move, but the whole club was no, okay, that's enough. One dance contest that we actually cleared the floor for and gave time to, that's enough for one night. And everyone kind of shouted at him and sort of pulled him back once he took a step back and stopped the next dance contest from starting up, which, thank God, because after the worm, my legs were hey man, that's all you get. Now it's all done. You know that, right? And I was yes, I completely understand this, body. Thank you for telling me that, body. I get it. We're good. And body was okay, good. Let's go get a beer. And I thanked Louis Vuitton Ninja anyway. I gave a whole bunch of high fives and thumbs and handshakes out to everybody in the crowd who came back onto the dance floor. And then the crowd kind of, came together again into a regular dance crowd. The next song started up. I decided to get 3 more mojitos or whatever and just melted back into that witching hour dance club. So that is the time I won an impromptu dance contest in Nightclub Central, Beijing. Thank you for listening. I don't tell that story as often as I tell the other stories because it's so surreal. But it happened, and I'm so glad I got to tell it here and that it'll be preserved on this podcast. Because it's so crazy, I forget about it a lot of the time that it happened. And then I remembered it the other week and was oh, that has to be a story. That has to be one of the stories I tell. Thank you again for listening, and if you have any kind of dance story, I'm very eager to hear it. Let me know, bitofarambler@gmail.com or any of the socials. I'm on all of those. And if you tell me a dance story, it'll probably get mentioned in one of the Ramble On episodes. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.
Looking for adventure, culture, and craft beer? Head to Fort Collins, Colorado. Start your day with a hike around the stunning Horsetooth Reservoir or a trip to the farmer's market. Quench your thirst at one of Fort Collins' world-class breweries, then soak up live music all night at a local venue. Fort Collins is a bike lover's paradise with more than 285 miles of trails and lanes. Fort Collins, Colorado, where open spaces create open minds. Start your adventure and book your stay now at visitfortcollins.com.